Okay, today I want to look at a PC that I've been building primarily to play Sega PC games. This is the PC that I've chosen. These are the PC specs that I needed to meet in order to play the game. So it's a Compact Desk Pro with a Pentium 2 and 32MB RAM. It's got a Rage Pro Turbo AGP graphics card. So things we've got to do: repair the PC, install Windows 98, have a play and do some comparing to a normal Sega Saturn. First, looking at this unit, obviously we've got the Pentium 2 there underneath the cooling fan, and having a look round the unit, it was quite dirty, it didn't boot. It posted okay but didn't boot into anything, so closer inspection the hard drive was pretty much dead. So I decided to take it all to bits, give it a good wash, give it a good clean, prepare it for the refurb. I ultrasonically cleaned the motherboard and checked all the capacitors. Here I am reseating the CPU with some fresh thermal paste. On inspection, compared to what it was originally, when I actually fitted this was pretty much married, and also mirrored what I took off. I wasn't sure if I'd put enough on or whether it was correct, but that pretty much mirrored what I found when I took it off. Pop these screws back in and we can proceed to start getting the hard drive. Really had a problem getting the hard drive to work on this. I tried compact flash conversions, I tried all sorts to get this to work, and it wouldn't accept anything apart from a hard drive, which was really weird. Normally I'd managed to get a hard drive or a compact flash to work, but it wouldn't accept any of it. So I did find a hard drive eventually that would allow me to get it to boot, and to, a lot of it recognised the hard drives, but when it actually came to installing Windows 98, it just constantly failed and constantly kept, crashing or freezing. This is a cool little feature, nice little door to board with all the ISA and PCI slots all in it, so I thought that was quite cool. Obviously that just marries into the main board and locks in. I thought that was quite cool. While I'd got it in bits, I decided to have a look at the power supply, just have a look at the caps, just to see what was going on in there. Apart from being grubby and filthy, nothing really that worried me at all. So I gave it a good clean, gave all the fans a good clean, and give it a blast with some compressed air out of my little compressed air device. And it all came up okay, so I was quite happy to leave that as is, really. That's the power supply back in, speaker back in, all connected back up again, so it's all pretty much back in complete, really. It's just a few bits and bobs. I did knacker there was a lead that went from the CD drive to the motherboard so that when you stream data or music primarily while you're playing a game, I did knacker that lead, so I had to buy that lead separatally. I basically pulled the plug out the end. So this little connection's for the speaker, so we'll get that plugged in. So I'm, at this stage, everything's going okay. Couldn't really find any problems. Like I say, once I'd got a compatible hard drive, off we went. Get Windows 98 installed, and off we went. So this is a quick look round. Like you say, it's designed for Windows 98. So I installed Windows 98 2nd edition. Once I'd found a compatible hard drive, I had no real problems. Everything installed okay. Found the drivers and bits and bobs I needed to install the graphics card and sound card and stuff like that. So this is the main event. This is Daytona USA on the PC. So obviously we'll take a look at this version first. I was quite pleasantly surprised at the uplift that the PC model gives it. There is some stuttering when you first run the game. There is a little bit of stuttering as it sort of settles, but after a while, the frame rate settles down. It is a faithful conversion of the Saturn, obviously in higher resolution. I think the drawing, the pop-ups reduced a little bit. I don't think the popping's quite as bad as the Saturn version. It's probably got a bit more RAM in there, obviously to aid things, to make it look a bit better. So this is the Sega Saturn version. As you can see, it's slightly darker. My Saturn's got a RAD2X, is it? I think it's called, which is a HDMI conversion, which has allowed me to capture this quite easily. But it is come out a little bit darker on the capture card. I don't understand why. Whatever I tried, I couldn't really bring that up much. So looking at the Sega Saturn version, it is a faithful copy. You know, they're both obviously very, very similar engines and how they run. I do notice a little bit more pop in, so when we compare them side to side, taking away that one's a little bit darker than the other, I do notice a little bit more pop in, and obviously the resolution's a little bit lower, so it does stand out that the Sega Saturn version is an inferior version to the PC. Purely for that reason, you know, it's a lot easier to play. I'd probably say a little bit faster, the Sega Saturn version. As soon as the PC sort of like sorts itself out, things tend to settle down, and it does run okay. Just interestingly, the specs of the PC are almost double what is recommended on the back of the CD on the dual case. So this PC is, you know, a Pentium 2, where obviously it only asks for a Pentium. It only asks for 16 meg. This has got 32 meg of RAM, so it's a lot in it. It's even got a better graphics card as well. So it's interesting that it is still struggling with the PC version at times, and the frame rate isn't superb on the PC, considering it is double the horsepower of what the game's spec is. You know, the Sega Saturn is a reasonably good version. It's not as good as the original version on the Sega Saturn, even though the pop-in and all the other stuff suffers on the Sega Saturn. The pop-in and the way the game engine actually works originally, you know, we all know that the Sega Saturn version was a rushed version, and this is a much more polished version, but the gameplay has suffered accordingly. So just a quick look at the Sega Saturn version in full screen. Obviously the resolution's definitely lower than obviously the PC. It's a lot better looking than obviously the standard output, because it is running HDMI and it is being upscaled and smoothed. It does look better on a CRT, I must admit, because obviously that's what it was designed for. But it is nice to see, you know, to actually take that comparison and look at what the PC is and what the PC could do against the Sega Saturn. In this instance, I'd have to say that the PC does catch it, you know. Interesting, obviously, I wish this had come out on the Diamond Edge 3D. One of my previous videos, I showed that there was a graphics card and setup that allowed Sega Saturn games that were slightly modified to run on a PC, but they were hardware accelerated accordingly. But unfortunately, these two games never ran on that machine. If you install the Diamond Edge games on this particular PC, they won't run. They just come up with a DLL issue. So those games were specific to that graphics card, which is a shame. I'd love to have seen Daytona running on that particular that enhanced version graphics card. But saying that, you know, the PC, you know, obviously this is Sega Rally. The PC handles this quite nicely. Again, I think the frame rate's a little bit choppier than the Saturn, but the Saturn is running a lower resolution. I think the colours, like you say, a little bit darker again on this, but that's just the way it's captured. But I think, you know, they're both good representations, but I think the PC does grab it because of the high resolution on the car. I think it just looks a little bit better in my eyes. I know it doesn't come across that particularly brilliantly because one is on a CRT and one is being captured, but I couldn't get the capture card to lock onto the PC. It looks like I maybe have a purchase coming in the future where I've got to buy a different capture card. It just kept saying, you know, mode's not supported, so I had to capture it in this manner just because my capture card wouldn't take it. Sega Rally is one of my favourite games. I do own the actual arcade cabinet of this, so it's nice to see this playing on the Saturn and the PC. Really cool, actually. You know, I think this version is probably one of the better versions. I didn't particularly like the version on the Dreamcast. I preferred the Sega Saturn version, only really because it was true to the original arcade cab, and having owning one, obviously, it's quite nice to see the little differences and the similarities between this and the arcade cab. There are you can see that some of the code has directly been used in the way they've implemented it. I think it's quite cool on the Saturn. Right, I'm going to let this just play out for a little bit. It's just me going through these stages, just so I can see if I can still do it. Because the arcade, I'm quite versed. I can normally quite easily finish all three stages. It's just whether I can get to number one on the special stage at the end. So I'd be interested to see how I get on with the Sega Saturn version. So we'll let this play out, and I'll shut up for 5 minutes and just let you enjoy whether I can get there in time or not. Well, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again in the next video. Bye for now.